From the heart of Maine, this is the DuView Podcast.
And welcome to this week's episode of the DuView Podcast. I am your host, Du, a.k.a. Ryan Dumont, and I am joined this week by Augusta Mayoral Candidate and City Councilor at Large, Marci Alexander. Marci?
Hi, how you doing,
Thanks for coming
Ryan?
on. Appreciate it. I'm doing great. Excellent. Thanks for coming on today. I know you're a busy person between working to your day job and also running for mayor, so thank you for taking the time to come on and share your message and share your ideas with the constituents, with the people of Augusta. So, for those of you that don't already know, Marci is already a city councilor at large, so she already sits on the city council. How long have you been in the city council, Marci?
I've been on the city council for 5.5 years.
All right, and why did you decide to run for the council in the first place? What got you invigorated? What's like, I need to run for this governmental body?
Well, I never planned to run for office. I have a very busy job as an attorney, but my kids were graduating from Coney High School, and I was trying to figure out like where were they going to end up down the road, and they were trying to figure that out too. And I said, well, do you think you would come back to Central Maine? And they said, oh no, I wouldn't come back to Central Maine. I wouldn't come back to Augusta. And I said, well, why not? And they said, well, there really isn't anything here for us, Mom. It's not cool. It doesn't have a place I would want to live. It doesn't have restaurants and shops. And
the opportunities they may have been looking for as young people, perhaps, too. Yeah,
definitely. To them, we've definitely fit what the public calls disgusta. And so as a mom, becoming an empty nester, because they were both going off to university, and I've been on other boards of directors for other nonprofits and other organizations that I had volunteered with. I thought, well, I need to get involved in my community.
You need to change something.
I got to get going. You can sit around and wait for other people to do stuff, but that's not how I roll, basically. If there's a way I can help, I'm going to help. And if I got to help my kids by getting involved in local politics, then I will. Initially, I just reached out to see if I could maybe participate on the planning board. That was my initial sort of investigative phase.
Yep, which was an appointed position, right? They appoint folks to the board.
Yep, correct. The mayor appoints the members of the planning board. But in just finding out, because I really didn't even know how it worked. I didn't know anything about city council. I'd seen a few meetings on TV.
Right.
They said there was an open seat, an at-large seat, and was I interested in running for it? And I said, there was no seat on the planning board, actually. So I said, sure.
Threw your hat in the ring?
I took out papers. I spoke to some knowledgeable former counselors and present counselors about what it involved, what my time commitment would be, what the types of issues there were there. Just want to make sure it was the best use of my time. If I was going to help, I want to have an impact.
Right.
And then I went off and started gathering signatures and learned the whole campaign basic process.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you get campaigns 101 there, and along with learning the ropes. So you're definitely somebody that likes to do their research without question. Correct, Marci?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I also like to ask people questions and listen. There are tons of smart people who have already done it, so I don't like to recreate the wheel.
You don't have to a lot of times.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. If you talk to, if I talked to Linda Conti, who was on the council, and said, how did you do this? And she was someone I definitely had a connection with because we worked together in the Attorney General's office years before.
Previously, yeah.
When I was the director of the Healthcare Crimes Unit and she was the director of the Consumer Protection Division. And so she kind of explained the process to me. She said we could definitely make a difference by doing that level of participation.
Right, and that's just like taking the first step. I know a lot of folks, you talk to them when they're first starting out, like, oh, I don't really know how to run, but, just asking that one person, making the ask is huge. Making the ask is definitely huge in order to, facilitate that office if you want to run. So that's excellent, Marci. And so since you've been on the council for, 5 years now and some change, what would you say in your time, specifically just as a city councilor, that you've done that you're proud of? Any specific legislation or anything like that?
Well, I think what I'm most proud of being on city council is that I listen to constituents and I listen to the issues that are presented to the council, and I try to make a completely unbiased decision that I think in the short and long term will benefit Augusta. And I know that was different than even what the public thought. I know when I first got on the council, people from the public would come to the meeting and they would say, well, I thought you were going to do this because you're a lawyer and therefore you represent this type of interest.
And you must do this because...
Yeah, I thought you were going to do that because you're a woman. And as a woman, I thought for sure you were going to go this way on something. No, they said these things.
No,
and
people do.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and they didn't mean anything by it at all. And I don't take it that way.
Right.
Instead, I'm like, well, because I'm a lawyer and I'm a problem solver, I like to listen to all the facts. And then I really try to make an unbiased decision. So for me... in my time on the council, what I found was that I turned out to be like the swing vote. So if an issue came in front of the council and it was a close call between the two, it would usually come back to me to be the swing vote. So, one of the first projects we did was a historic district. And that was huge for that neighborhood. They then qualified for historic tax credits. It gave that neighborhood a better sense of community. It gave them some basic standards to make it more livable, so that
just making things easier for
people.
Simply.
And more delineation between the commercial parts of that neighborhood and the residential parts of that neighborhood. And then we go from there. We do everything from. I was the chair of the medical marijuana committee, for example, and came up with a way to make sure we had medical marijuana available to the public that needs it, but also not become the capital of marijuana. So
finding the fine line, a little bit of balance, but making things easier for people, not more difficult.
Exactly. That's why we did a moratorium. That was one of the things I pushed at the beginning, just to be like, okay, hold on, we need a moratorium just to figure out what's going on and assess it, do a little research. Then we came up with a system of where we would have them. We came up with a system for zoning, the number of permits. And it's worked out really well.
Yeah.
I mean, we have great availability, but we're not overrun with it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Even just like looking around town, I mean, I'd say it's balanced pretty well.
Yeah.
And there's also, from the revenue side, there's a little bit of extra revenue kickback, for tax purposes too.
Well, the funny thing about that was, unless someone was going to build a new building, we don't get any extra revenue.
Really?
We get a small permitting fee,
Yep.
but we actually don't make any money off their income.
Okay.
So most of the buildings that they've ended up going into were already built.
Yep.
We were already getting tax dollars for those.
Gotcha.
So that was something that was really, it's the state that gets all the tax, not the municipality. So that was one where it really wasn't advantageous for the municipality to let itself be overrun by them, because it would actually decrease the value of the other businesses if you had too many of them.
Right. The field becomes saturated.
Exactly.
Beyond belief. Yeah.
And if you're not getting into tax dollars for the saturation, you don't want to lose the character of your city to just one industry.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't matter what that industry is. It could be even back, when we had, the mills, right? We saw what happened when we let the mill run amok. Yes, there were jobs. Yes, there were this, that. But the Kennebec River, you couldn't walk by, without getting the death stench from the dead fish and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's good to have our balance, and that's what I think you're kind of getting towards there.
I'm definitely the balance. I mean, the mills are Maine's heritage.
Right. I'm not trying to speak badly on that. I'm just using that. If we go all in on one, you got to have a little bit of balance in the community.
Right.
I guess is all I'm arguing
like
for.
those mills in Augusta were the jobs for our citizens for years upon years.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
That was before people even understood the environmental impacts of what they were doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's actually part of Maine's rich heritage. Are those mills.
No, I'm just using an example that had some impact on the area.
Yeah.
But no, they were important. They're part of our heritage, everything like that, no question.
Yeah, and then we moved on to another one would have been two-way traffic.
Oh, downtown?
For the downtown.
I think that's awesome.
That was very controversial. That was very, very controversial.
I remember even just sitting around the dinner table, it was controversial.
Oh, definitely. And it was really that it was a change. People had a hard time thinking about it as the potential for it, because it had been that way for so long. And it is a tricky little part of town. When it was one way, when it was one way, it was actually trickier. You had to come from the right direction. People shot down through. You had to circle all the way around.
Go around Commercial Street.
Yeah. So for me, what I did with that one is what I do with anything, is I researched the issue, right? I have a degree from undergraduate in economics, so I totally get how money works and how business works and incentivizing things.
Accessibility to businesses and
How many
creates more money.
passes,
Yeah,
how many
exactly.
car
Yep.
passes. So for retail in particular, they need a lot of car passes. So for example, when they did the marketplace, you'll see that they put those little rubber cords down on the road that you drive over.
Right.
They're just clicking off passes.
Just keeping track of how many people go by.
Yeah, and the higher the number of people who go by, the better it is for retail. So, so for example, on that particular one, I was getting lobbied at home. I was getting lobbied at work. I was getting lobbied, at the gym
Right.
one way, another way.
Hey, Marci, it would be really good.
Oh, well, and some people are like, oh, Marci, people are going to die. It is so, people are going to die down there. It's not safe. And I remember saying, well, we can make it safe. I mean, obviously, we can do traffic studies, we can do crosswalks, we can do extra lighting, we can definitely make it safe. We have the technology and then the wherewithal to do that. So I on the day of the vote, I was again in that seat where I was like the deciding vote.
Right.
If it's a tie, it goes up to the mayor. But if it isn't a tie, it gets solved among the councilors. And so, yes, I voted for two-way traffic, and I definitely had some members of my own family who were not happy with me. But I will say 6 months later, they said, all right, you were right. It worked. It worked. It can still be improved. Like we have, the pedestrian pieces we keep working on and make it better and better. But I don't think there's a person who wouldn't look down there that say that was great.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. I mean, I can just think of even just looking, if you stand up at the fire station back to looking down the hill, it's just how vibrant downtown is now. It's amazing. I mean, like, even in the middle of the week, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday at lunchtime, there are people on both sides of the street going into restaurants, going into this, going into that, and it's really cool to see. And there's only room for more, for it to get better.
The credit for that, and even for two-way traffic, goes with the downtown business owners.
Yep.
They came to the city council. We don't get a lot of people that come to city council, but they came to the city council en masse and said, we want two-way traffic.
Yep.
The executive director, Michael Hall of the Downtown Alliance, he came and said, I've done the research and we need two-way traffic. So the other thing you have to do as a councilor is you got to listen.
Right.
They had it was them that created the idea. And I think your job as counselor is to listen, do your research, and then make this decision that's in the best interest of everybody.
Well, and that's interesting you say that too, because a lot of the time it's not with dealing with politicians. A lot of the time it's listen to what I have to say, not I'm going to listen to you, which I think is a unique aspect of you, Marci, is that you are more than willing to sit and just be, like a fly on the wall for a second before, even going into full counselor mode, so to speak. That's really interesting and unique.
Well, judges do that. I mean,
right.
When
it also comes from your field.
So when
as
you
well.
when you go to court, I used to be a litigation attorney. So when I went to court, I would present my view, the other side would present their view. The judge would listen to both, maybe ask us a couple questions, and make a decision. So people like me, we're trained to listen to all the views on it and assess it, and then make a decision. We're not people who rush to a decision. At least I'm not. I'm someone.
Right.
I like to talk it through. I might have missed something. I might have.
You want to make sure you have all the facts and everything in line. I get
another
it.
angle to it that maybe I haven't thought of. Have I looked at it from every angle?
Every perception of the issue. Yeah. No.
Have I listened to all the right people?
Is there anybody else I can get information from?
Yeah.
Do we have all the facts?
Yeah. I mean, the Downtown Alliance did fabulous on that. The downtown business owners did fabulous on that. And the other nice thing was the downtown business owners, they had their money on the line.
Yeah.
So they're
most
invested
definitely.
in that
Their livelihoods.
So how could how could you go against the group that had the most to lose? You know what I mean?
Right.
They were trying as hard as they could to make that a vibrant downtown. And boy, I made the right choice supporting them. So, and I would again. I mean, we have a fabulous group of business owners in the city of Augusta, not just downtown, but throughout the city.
Without question. Yeah, without question. And like I said, it's been an awesome change as a young person. I'm happy to see it. So good job. Thank you guys. You and the business owners there. So for those that don't know, what's the difference between just being a city councilor and being a city councilor at large?
So a city councilor, ward councilor, it represents one of the 4 wards in the city. So in the city of Augusta, we have 4 ward councilors. And the way to think of it is if the city were a square, we'd have 1 ward in each of the 4 corners, right? And then we have 4 at-large councilors. they pretty much represent the entire city. They can come from anywhere in the city. They have to get 200 signatures to get on the ballot. And then, in fact, when you look at how the city council chamber is set up, you have the at-large councilors on one side, and you have the 4 ward councilors on the other side. And what you usually find is the ward councilors are very tied to their neighborhoods. So
they're like they have the finger on the heartbeat of the neighborhood.
like
so to
Linda
speak.
Conti was historic district. That was her neighborhood.
She can tell you who lives there,
Yep,
what's going
yep.
on, if somebody had a block
Pat
party.
Pat Parody had Sand Hill when he was on the council. Cecil Munson had Riverside Drive when he was on the council. So people really knew their neighborhoods and did a great job of representing their neighborhoods.
Right. So it's again, you've come from the whole being at large. You're voted on from the whole city.
Which gave me the ability to have even a larger perspective because I'm not tied to my neighborhood where I'm from. Actually, I can think about it in terms of of everybody.
You're kind of a floater,
Yeah.
like you can,
Yeah.
which is I think that gives the most freedom and. But again, you still need to have people that are tied into their wards and know their neighbors, so to speak, right? Not to say that at large you don't. You just get to meet more. You have more neighbors, right?
Well, that's exactly what happened. So over time, as you would go to city events, as you would talk to people at the council meetings, as you go to the chamber events, you go to the Mill Park events, you would meet people from throughout the city. The number of people I've met on city council is amazing, and I wish I had done it earlier. Because I think when you're a working parent, like I was, you either know people through your kids at school or at your job.
Right.
And you don't really have an outlet too much far beyond that. And so being an at-large councilor was great. I met people from all over the city, and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. And so, representing the whole city, you came to Augusta originally with your husband, Troy, correct?
Correct.
And so when you guys first came to Augusta, what did you do when you first came to town?
So my husband and I met at the University of Southern Maine.
Okay.
I was a freshman. He was a junior. And we started dating. It was quite cute, actually. And then my senior year, we got engaged.
Okay.
To be married, and I moved to Augusta to work for Linda Gifford's law firm as an intern, doing real estate work because I was planning to go to law school the next year, but it was a way to see a type of law and to get some experience.
Yeah.
And that was when I first moved to Augusta. I was 20, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've been here for a little while then.
A little while.
That's
yeah,
excellent.
Yeah.
And so when you and first Troy, or Troy being from the area, when you guys first came back up here, where did you live and where were you located in town?
Well, I had worked my own way through school and
Yep.
paid my own way through school. So to say I had limited economic means is an understatement. And Troy was just a beginning teacher, and
So to say economics were limited,
and,
they really were.
his economics were limited also.
Yep.
So our first apartment that we had in Augusta was on 10 Fowler Street, which is behind the McDonald's on Bangor Street.
Yep.
Right there in that corner.
That bluish. Well, I think it's like a bluish house now, or is it one of the in line with those buildings?
Yeah, it's in line with
Yep.
those buildings.
Okay.
And we had a 1 bedroom, 1 living room, kitchen, bathroom. Like it was very tiny, but that was our first apartment.
But it was
we
home
thought it
and-
was awesome.
Yeah.
It was our first
It
apartment.
was a palace for you guys.
It really
right? Yeah.
was. It really was.
Yeah, I mean, I can even relate back to when I got my first place, after college, and it was mine. It was, it's yours, regardless of what it is.
Well,
it's
I
yours.
don't think anybody I know would have ever called that place a palace.
Yeah.
But it was clean. We had a very nice landlord, and we had nice neighbors upstairs. He was a professor at UMA, a jazz. Don Stratton, who was passed, but he was our upstairs neighbor, and it worked out great because I went to law school and I was able to get an apartment, a room in an apartment in Portland during the week.
Okay.
And come home to Augusta on the weekends, and that's the
that's
only
excellent.
way you could afford the 2 rents.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, most definitely. And so, what would you say was different now and then? So when you first came to Augusta versus now, not just you being on the city council, that type of thing, but like in terms of the fabric of the town, what have you seen that's changed?
Well, I when I first came to Augusta, we were in the first of the recessions.
Okay.
So there were not many jobs for people. There was not any economic prosperity to think of. So Augusta was struggling. I mean, it was losing businesses, not gaining businesses.
Right.
But it had a great community feel to it. In fact, one of the jobs I had, because I had to take every job I could get, was I worked for Augusta Rec, and I was the referee for the men's basketball league at the William Street basketball courts.
Oh wow.
And it was all these great big tall men I remember, and I was the little ref. And Troy was always nervous. He was always nervous something was going to happen to me, but they were great. And I really liked that part of Augusta, like all the people. This is the regular community people that I met.
Aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, they had great Coney spirit, great City of Augusta. It's tough because Augusta is a bedroom community for state jobs.
True. Yeah.
So it's hard to find our community sometimes. And so I was fortunate by working for Augusta Rec to get to meet people right from day one.
Yeah, and that's nice, and that changes the game, especially, just being in Augusta and having my dad be from Augusta helps a lot, and then, once you go to school, you meet people, but, early on starting out, that's the biggest thing, and that's another reason I personally love Augusta is the community aspect. Like, you talk about that Coney spirit, that's something that's alive and well even till today, and will continue to be. You don't see much more city spirit than when we have the Coney Gardner game. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing to see how many people still turn out, even from out of state, that'll come back.
Well, Troy's family is from Augusta.
Yep.
His mother went to Coney High School. His grandmother went to Coney High School. According to his grandmother, I can't remember how many 100 years they've been here.
Right.
And so their Coney pride, they always went to the Coney Gardner game. Yep. In fact, my father-in-law's from Gardner, so it was a family. It was
oh boy!
I took them to the Coney Gardner game the other day, the football game.
Yep, up at at Massillonsky right
now.
Yep,
yeah, that we won.
I saw that.
And it was kind of cute because he was still like, I'm from Gardner, and she's like, I'm from Coney, and even here it's 50. They're probably 50 years out from their high school reunions, and they had their colors on.
Oh
yeah.
I love it. It runs deep.
Yeah.
So when you're not running for office or in the city council chambers, or I guess in the past reffing basketball, what do you like to do in your free time, Marci? What do you like to do for fun?
Before the pandemic, I loved going to the Y.
Okay.
So I went to the Y, I don't know, 3-4 days a week, and I had different friends that I met there in the morning or in the evening. Definitely love that. I like to fly fish. I'm really into fishing. I always have been since I was a kid. I also hunt because Troy hunts, and I grew up in a family of people that hunt. So I have just got my 3 any deer permits.
Right on.
More than I'll ever need. I was actually thinking of transferring one out. I think you can give one away.
I think you can transfer. Don't quote me on that, but I think you can.
Yeah, and I think the Sportsman's Alliance of Maine was looking for some for kids. So if they would like one, they should just reach out to me, and they definitely can have one of my permits. I'll be lucky to get one of them. I would say my biggest hobby is just Troy and my daughters. I just
family
absolutely love spending time with my family. Definitely, that would be one of my favorite things. I do also play video games, which people find surprising.
Okay.
My future son-in-law laughed when he saw that I had the latest PlayStation system and the Oculus system, but that's because I've always enjoyed science fiction books, and I enjoy games are intelligent. They're just so well designed now.
Most definitely. Yeah. They're not to go off on too much of a tangent, but there's just the storytelling. You have storytelling in some video games and stuff that is comparable with movies and books at this point. You know what I'm saying? How they go into the design and everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, and
definitely.
my kids played them. So Iris and I would always do like all the Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones, every single one of those games. I don't have a lot of time for games,
right?
But it was definitely something for me to do with the kids, which was fun. So
most definitely. And so again, pre-COVID kind of question, but what are some of your favorite spots around town, around Augusta?
Well, I like the downtown. I love going to the Y. I love the rail trail.
Yep.
I like all the walking trails. I like the walking trail over right here by Coney, the cross-country trail.
Yep.
That's a really nice trail. I like to go to UMA. My husband and I went and walked that the other night. I've mountain biked that too. It's fun. Take your bike up and down as long as there aren't too many walkers. The Bond Book Recreation Area is
Oh, that's
fabulous.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Troy and I both have mountain bikes, and
Either you guys cross country ski at all?
I snowshoe because I ripped
Okay.
my ACL out years ago,
Yep.
being an ex-athlete. And I snowshoe actually behind my house. My neighbor has 300 acres, so.
Oh, wow.
But I also go to the Viles Arboretum on their snowshoe trails.
Another great spot. Yep.
Yeah, and I did. Yeah, that's another great spot. I mean, we have so many recreation areas.
We really do.
It's I can't. I haven't even named them all. There's probably
Right.
five
There's
more.
probably still another handful,
Right?
either directly in our community or just
You got
abutting.
Howard
Yeah.
Hill. You got the one that goes out to the spectacle
Oh,
pond.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
go
yeah.
out. I've
Yep.
been out there biking before. Geez, I can't even think of them all. But we're very fortunate. You wouldn't
Yes.
think that we had as much opportunity as we do.
And we do, and that's just, it's like, I think part of it is just educating people on where things are.
Yep.
Because I think a lot of the times we have like a lot of like hidden gems, so to speak. Like,
Oh, the Bicentennial
yeah.
Nature Park.
Oh yeah, but let's talk about let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, Bicentennial Park's an awesome option. Like, I mean, I lived in Augusta for the first couple of years of my life, moved to Farmingdale during, the majority of my young years, and then came back for high school. But I wish I had something like that as an Augusta citizen where I could just, zoom up there, and they have water, the slides into the lake and trails and this. It's an awesome spot.
What makes that so important is that it's public access to the water.
Yes.
So, it's tough. It's tough growing up in a state that's called vacation land, and the tourists that come, they go to the ocean,
Yeah.
they go to the lakes, they enjoy all those. They have the houses on the lakes,
Yep.
they have the houses on the ocean, and you're a Mainer and you don't have access to the water. So Augusta solved that by having this public access to the lake. And so when my kids were little, we would pile in the car and head over there to go swimming.
Yeah.
And it was great because it was only 20 minutes. Public access to the water, I think that's super important for Mainers. Yeah.
Now, do you think something like that, getting more people to use that, comes down with, again, hey, people, this is out here? Or is it, maybe hosting events out there for the community? What do you think would get more folks engaged out there?
I think it's both.
Yep.
I think you could work it into your recreation program. You could have paddleboard clubs that meet out there.
Kayaking, anything.
You could have
yeah.
kayaking that meets out there. You could have moms groups that go out for story time.
Yeah.
You just got to work it into that recreation schedule.
And would be easier to do in a non-COVID time,
Yeah.
obviously, when
Yeah.
you can jam kids into a van or a bus and
Oh,
move
I mean,
them all out.
One of
it's-
our counselors, Kevin Jenkins, had that exact idea. He said, why aren't we busing people out there? Why
Yeah.
don't we at least have a schedule? And he's right.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
Because there's so many people. The other part about not having public access is that people that don't have public access generally don't have transportation.
Yeah, it unfortunately usually goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can improve on it. I mean, I think it's a gem. I would hate for us to ever lose it. I don't think you'd ever get anything like it back again.
No, I don't. I think you're right there, Marci. I don't think that once you lose something like that, that's something you don't get back.
And the pools are great. We have wonderful
Yes.
pools, but that's a different experience.
It's a different experience.
Very different
Yep.
experience.
And again, when you're in the pool, you're still in the city of Augusta. You know what I'm saying? You're in the city. But when you're at Bicentennial, you're out on Togus. You're around trees, the birds, and everything else. It's a nice change of scenery, I think, for folks too.
Oh, nature.
Yeah, nature. I mean,
definitely. What do they call it? Forest bathing now?
Yeah, or
it's
something.
It's a fancy term for our life in Maine.
Yeah,
right?
it's what I do every day.
Right, but some people don't.
Yeah,
They live in
it's
town,
true.
so they can't get
Yeah.
out there. So, yeah, I think that's a gem.
Yeah, most definitely. And again, just promoting it, having more access to it, and again, when things kind of go back or get back to normal here, it'll be a little bit easier.
Well,
but,
the Augusta City Council did vote in the last budget to create a marketing position for the city of Augusta.
oh, really?
Yep. And
Yep.
one of the things that position is charged with doing is creating resources to tell the public about what we have. Not so that we know where all of our trails are. They're easy to find. We know
Right.
we have what the hours are for the nature park. I think that without that information, some of these things get underutilized.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's part of that position.
Or because it was documented in a pamphlet, let's say 10 years ago, and it was never, what I'm saying, was never brought back out. The thing has a layer of dust on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're more digital. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting to try and get things out. And I think that's a great idea to have somebody to market, because like I said, like, unfortunately we do get somewhat of a bad rap, being in Augusta. Like not every, even people that live here aren't always as gung ho about it. But it'd be nice because we do have a lot of nice things though in Augusta.
Oh, we have a lot of nice
and
stuff.
it's just I'm big about pride, about the city of Augusta. I mean, I put it out obviously on my own, channels here, but to hear you tell me that gives me a lot of hope for things looking forward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. I think people that came up with the slang term for the city of Augusta, they don't live here.
No.
Because I love living here.
I do too.
I could fill my days with activities that are just on city parks.
Yes.
I could take my kids, I could take, someday grandchildren to all these different locations that other towns don't have.
No. And like I said, we're so lucky in a lot of ways. I mean, Augusta really is a good place to live.
I mean, we've got great school programs.
Yep.
We've got the food programs. We've got the backpack program. We got the food backpack program.
And within the community, we have a lot of good people too.
Yeah.
A lot of good coaches, a lot of good mentors, a lot of good camp counselors, a lot of good people like that too, which make the whole experience, especially for the kids.
Well, that's a credit to our school department. We have a lot of great teachers.
We do.
I
can attest to that.
We really do. And as I've been knocking on doors for the mayor campaign, I run into educators, and when you talk to them about what they're concerned about for the city, they are concerned about quality of life. They are concerned about the kids. They're concerned about the library. They've already given their heart and soul to the city in their job.
Yeah, I was going to say in their.
But then in their personal life, they're still caring for and trying to give more.
It's amazing.
My hat's off to educators.
Yeah. No, I mean, I worked in the field of education last year, and it was amazing to see. Not being from education, working in education for the year, and just seeing that. The above and beyond that a lot of these folks do.
Oh my gosh,
it's amazing.
This pandemic?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
And then now
with this,
amplify that times 100.
Yeah. I mean, the child care program during the pandemic, where one day something's open, the next day something's closed.
Oh, yeah.
Schools, the same thing. All the way down to the bus drivers. I mean, the bus drivers are getting exposed to 50 kids as they get on and off the bus. I mean, they're taking their own life,
that's just
at risk.
Like Keith over at Coney.
Yep.
Everybody knows Keith. Everybody loves Keith, right? He was going to retire. He wasn't going to come back. And, he felt a sense of duty to come back.
Yeah.
Because of how crazy thing, especially on the sanitation side, the janitorial staff at Coney, awesome group of people. But that being said, that you just don't see that. You know what I'm saying? The duty and the honor.
Well, you do in Augusta.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say, except in Augusta, Maine.
I would say
right
you do here. I mean, I agree with you. The cleaning staff had to go above and beyond.
Oh, yeah.
It's all those unsung heroes of this pandemic. As we all pivoted,
right.
It was
had to pivot. A lot of people had to pivot a little bit. Some people had to pivot a little bit harder than others. You know
fast.
What I'm saying? And quickly,
fast,
yes.
and then again and again. I mean, we're in a whole different place now than we were
a year ago,
even before. But I have to say that when you talk to people one-on-one about their experience in the pandemic, they've got a great story about somebody helping out.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we don't focus on those stories enough.
No, we don't.
We try to. People tend to get bogged down in the negative of things.
Yes. Yep.
But boy, there's 100 good stories for every one negative when it comes to how
definitely.
people have helped out during the pandemic.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, and I mean, I talked about that with some of my previous guests. I talked about that with BL Lippert. He and I talked about there's been a lot of bad. Like for example, like kids not being able to go and play sports, not great. But then there was, they had the extra time to go and do something for somebody in their community or something like that. There is some good, that does still come from the bad.
Well, it's human nature to tell the negative story. It's more entertaining.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not human nature to tell the good stories. You don't
get the views.
The mask makers, all those women and men that got together to sew masks as there were none. I mean,
right. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. I mean, I felt privileged to help those ladies out. But they took it head on.
Oh, yeah.
And expecting nothing in return.
Right. And I mean, I think that's the unique human story is that when we're faced with hardship, some either rise to the occasion,
yes,
or some fall or falter. It's just, and it's amazing to see these mask making folks. Amazing just to see them not miss a beat, just throw it into high gear. There are no masks. Well, let's make masks.
That's what they did.
Yep.
They made thousands of them.
Yeah, and it's not like they made one or two. Yeah, they made thousands of masks. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
amazing.
the Augusta School food program had to pivot from kids,
Yeah, I was just about
from
to
kids getting food at school to finding a way to get.
bagging meals,
So they got a
delivering
home.
meals. Oh yeah,
Yeah, drive-by handing out
yeah.
meals. I mean, I'm proud of the City of Augusta.
I think it was awesome, and I think that the overall response to the pandemic has been as good as you can get.
Yeah, I really do. I
I
think currently we're all kind of like, oh, we wish it was over. You know, we're in that sort of feeling to
Yeah.
it. But I think that we've just forgotten how far we've come and how great we've done.
Yes,
You
most
know,
definitely.
and we need to just not focus on the negative of it and just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
And speaking of pushing forward, why did you decide to run for mayor? Was it very similar to your same reasons for running to city council? But what made you make the decision to go for the mayor's seat versus staying on the city council, just on the city council?
Yeah. Well, so I was up for re-election this year for my at-large seat. And so my choices were to follow or to lead. That was really my choice. And as I found, what I learned over the time that I've been on the council was that I was more of a leader than a follower, even in group discussion. And because I really want things to happen and get finished and move forward. So I'm all about not languishing in bureaucracy, not spinning our wheels. If we're going to do something,
Let's do it.
Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Let's let's research it.
Yeah,
Let's make sure we can afford it.
Yes.
Make sure that we've looked at all the angles of it, but then let's go.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's just not sit and talk about it for 8 hours. Let's do.
Exactly. And so I thought to myself, I'm going to be committing for 3 more years of what is pretty much a volunteer activity. In fact, people keep saying, if you become mayor, you're going to give up your job. And I say, I think the mayor might get $200 a month, so I can't live on that.
It's not a full-time gig.
No, it's probably full-time work, but
full-time
not full-time pay. So I have to keep my other job.
Yeah.
But I thought, I think I can lead, and I think I can keep moving Augusta forward. We're going to be coming out of the pandemic to very uncertain economic times.
Yes, we are.
So we're going to need very level-headed, smart, strategic, consensus-building leadership, and I think I'm that person.
Okay. Yeah, no, most definitely. And so, as you said, you're looking to move Augusta forward. So what are some of the main, I mean, obviously coming out of the pandemic recovery, what are some of the other issues that you're looking to address with your campaign or as mayor?
Well, we definitely, first and foremost, just have to make sure that the businesses that we currently have survive the pandemic.
Yes.
And they're not out of the woods yet. We're headed back into winter, so indoor, and we're in the middle of the surge. This is the highest number of cases we've had. So we're going to have to be very careful with our business community. We also have to be very careful with our taxes, because we went through, during the pandemic, we had this crazy property tax increase where people were selling homes for prices we'd never seen before, for cash. And there's that state law that can force that revaluation issue. So we have to be really careful with that, because we're in a bubble. You can
pop the bubble really easily.
Right,
yeah.
And you could push people's taxes up without really waiting to see if it levels out and comes down, right?
Right.
So for me, as far as pushing Augusta forward, I think my big project I want to keep working on is the Sand Hill project.
Revitalization of Sand Hill?
Yep. In 2018, when we were doing the police station project, one of the things that we talked about with that was the downtown had started to get some synergies. Okay, so it was starting to move along on its own. People were buying up buildings. They were renovating buildings. It was moving along. But you can't only focus on one part of a city this size. Okay, this is actually a huge landmass. This city
we
has.
are big landmass-wise.
Big. And we have a lot of people, and we have a lot of jobs.
And it's spread out.
So if you focus all your attention in just one place,
like just on downtown,
you're going to lose opportunities in other parts of the city. So in 2018, we as a group said, we need to start. What other areas of the city? Now, for me, it was Sand Hill. It's a no-brainer. We've got to move from the railroad bridge by where the Colonial Theater is.
Towards the end of downtown.
Yep. We got to move from there up the hill.
Most definitely.
And so that's the thing that really is going to need help moving it along. Creativity, thoughtfulness. It's going to need tax increment financing. It's going to need, the support of the neighborhood, of the people that live there.
Right.
But I think that's a big project, because as you move up that hill, I think some of the most dense poverty that we have is in that area.
I would have to agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got to also, while we're doing that, find affordable housing and other
Most
opportunities for people that live there.
Yes.
That's got to be part of it too. We've still got to look back at Western Avenue and make sure that the buildings that are closing there, that we come up with some viable plans or incentives to keep them going or get them refilled.
Right.
Right. Again, you can't take your eye off any one part of the city. For example, the Sears Building might be.
Yeah, I was going to say that plaza up there, anything not the Christmas tree shop or Bed Bath and Beyond. Right?
Now it's got a brand new building being built in the corner of it, so that's
what's
great.
going on with that?
That's an urgent care site.
Okay.
Yep. But that means a huge issue for that Sears complex is probably already solving itself. They
Directly or indirectly.
They wouldn't
right.
have built it there if they didn't feel that it was going to create the number of visits that it would need for that project to be economically viable. And then the owner of the whole mall will now have all these people coming to that site, so that makes that Sears building more viable for a business to come back into.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of its own. It brings its own foot traffic, or it brings its own traffic.
It starts
in, I guess.
to bring foot traffic to itself.
Right. Yeah. That's
right?
actually pretty smart.
Yeah. So that's usually why they build out the corners of those little mall
Well, I
projects.
was wondering. I drove by it the other day, and I was wondering what was going on there. But that's actually not a bad idea, and that's a good point that you bring up. That if you take your eye off any one corner of the city for too long, what happened over there? It's like, oh my, and it's being. I think it's definitely what you're arguing for is just some general mindfulness of what your territory is and the makeup of it.
Strategy.
Yeah, and strategy.
You gotta have strategy. You gotta be very
strategic. City planning is huge.
I mean, if you have momentum headed in a direction like we had in downtown, where it started at one end, right,
and just
it honestly just inched its way all the way down through, then you just got to push that momentum under that railroad bridge and up that hill.
And just keep pushing it up the hill.
Right.
Yeah.
And we had the momentum from the marketplace in Augusta, which is another great project, right? We need to push that down Mount Vernon Avenue, right? We need to come down that
like
street.
Like a pincer attack, two-pronged type action.
Right?
Yeah,
and you'll head down through that neighborhood. You got Bond Brook Recreation Area there.
Yep.
I mean, that is a gem.
That's just waiting for more stuff to be around.
Well, and housing. It's waiting for people
affordable housing
who want to, or any housing, really, middle class, any type of housing, so people can live near it and use it.
Right.
And take their mountain bikes and go up through those trails. Bond Brook itself at one time was a great fishery.
It was.
Right? Because Atlantic salmon ran up to that brook.
Mm-hmm. Up the brook, all the way, all the
right?
way up. Yeah.
Right? So yes, you've just got to be very strategic in what you're doing. And people, you need to think carefully about the people. So it can't be that you just do economic development for economic development's sake.
Just for the sake of doing it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You got to make it livable.
Yes. Practical.
Because most people, what they don't realize about Augusta, and you'll hear a lot of politicians say, I'm going to bring jobs to your town, jobs. Well, for Augusta, we have 3 jobs for every one person. Okay, so we have jobs. We have tons of jobs. Why is that? We have the state.
Yep.
We have state office buildings. Those people drive in. Some of them choose to live here, but many of them do not.
A lot of them live in our other satellite communities around.
Oh, they live all over the place. Yeah. Brunswick, Portland. Yep. When I worked for the state in the Attorney General's office, I was one of a handful of people who actually lived in Augusta.
Really?
Yeah. And I thought it was crazy that they would commute 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, actually, that's true. Now that you mention that, I think back to my time when I was doing an internship at the State House. And our director of communications lived in Portland and drove up every day. There were a couple people, now that you mentioned, now that I think back to in the office, that lived in Portland and just drove up.
Yeah.
Because 95.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't they just live here?
Right. Well,
and it was the same thing my kids said 5.5 years ago.
Exactly. They don't think it's cool
it wasn't
or hip
cool,
enough. Yeah.
But it is now.
I think so.
I think so.
Most definitely. And like I said, it doesn't even just... It's not even just taking one look at downtown. It's taking one look at what else can be. Right, I mean, like on Sand Hill, the Tobias Parkers, and I think another partner of his, they're going to be Sand Hill.
The Kushnock Brewing Partners are doing an RFP to build a restaurant in the last old mill building.
Yes, that's another unique. That'll be a nice, I guess. There's an economic foothold with a little bit of history. You know what I'm saying? It's using the
Well,
existing
it's
structure.
pushing again.
Yeah.
We're taking the momentum. We're pushing it up the hill. Now,
Yep.
in 2018, we did an RFP to try to get public bids on that. This was from anybody,
Anybody? Yep.
and no one bid
No
on
one
it.
bid on
So it sort of sat there for another couple years. And we're just fortunate that there are investors like that, like the Kushnock Investment Group, who have taken an interest in developing historic buildings in Augusta.
Yeah.
They haven't been. I don't. People have noticed, but they're not interested in taking buildings down.
No, they're repairing and restoring what's already there.
They're repairing and restoring Augusta's history.
Yep.
Okay, so that will come before the full council.
Mm-hmm.
It's been for an informational meeting. They'll have to present it to the full council.
Right.
There'll be public comment on it.
Yep.
And then depending on what they end up, offering, and the city ended up being able to accept. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's always the process. Can't jump
Exactly.
Can't jump ahead of the
Well,
process.
and
in
it's a public. I mean, that's public land, so we
Right.
need the public's input on that
yeah,
project.
most definitely.
We need, a thorough vetting of it. We can't enter into an agreement that would, tie our hands on a piece of our history.
Right. Like you
Right.
said, though, it is about the people too.
Right.
Most definitely.
Yep.
So speaking of that, what do you think, Marci, makes you best prepared or the best fit for the job? What makes Marci the best fit for mayor?
Oh, I think it's just my personality. Actually, I think I'm very good at listening to what people have to say, and then working on a group of people and bringing them together. I'm very, very good
Getting
at
the
that.
best out of a group of people.
Yeah. I look for the talent in everybody. I mean, everybody's got a talent that they bring to a project, and I try to figure out what that is, and then I put it to its best use.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So for me, that means that because then you get stuff done. You move stuff forward because you're bringing everybody in, you're getting everybody on the same page, you're letting everybody be heard, right? But you're also saying we need to take action, And I think I have the temperament and demeanor to be a great mayor, and I think a lot of that comes from my profession. I'm an attorney, so I'm always going to be professional. I'm always going to be courteous. If you look at the city council meetings where I chaired, where Dave wasn't there were some difficult issues that we dealt with,
Yeah.
some difficult issues, and you'll see me. I always de-escalate people. I bring them back to where we are, what the issue is. It's mutual purpose, mutual respect that you have to have. That
Regardless
really,
of where they come from. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's excellent.
yeah, that makes it makes no difference to me whatsoever where you come from. I mean,
Right.
I grew up very modest means.
Yep. No, I
So
completely
I think everybody's got great ideas that they can bring forth, and I feel like I have the skills to bring people together and then move their ideas forward. Yeah.
And so that kind of goes into my next question. So what have you done in your career? I mean, those are some of the aspects, like being a good manager or being a capable, facilitator, right? But what have you done over your career that you think has prepared you for like leadership positions or?
Oh, tons of them.
Yep.
Tons of them. I mean, I started off at 24 or 25, my daughter's age, as an assistant attorney general. I was assigned to do 2 different areas of the law and come up with my own way of doing it, really. It was 100, 200 cases I would have at a time. I revamped the whole process. I worked with the court system to revamp even how we did the orders for the court to make it more efficient. By the time I was done, it ran on the dime. Then I moved over and did healthcare law for the Attorney General's office, civil, and then the Attorney General, Stephen Rowe, appointed me director of the Healthcare Crimes Unit. When I took over the unit, I was asked to take over the unit because it had some functioning issues. It wasn't producing enough cases. It wasn't moving.
As efficient as it
It
could
wasn't
be.
moving
Yeah.
things. See? Exactly
Right.
what I do. Exactly what I do. So
Marci's a mover.
I
Yep.
came in, the first thing you gotta do is you gotta meet everybody, get to know them, figure out what their talents are, try to figure out what the impediments are. Is it they don't have the tools that they need to do the job, or is it they don't have the skill to do that job? I always say with people that sometimes it's not that people are unwilling to do what you want; it's they're unable. They actually don't have the skill. You could ask them 5 times, but if they don't know how to use Excel, you're never going to get the product you want from them out of
You're
Excel.
not, no.
But maybe they have a different skill that I could use them for that isn't that. So you got to do that same process. You figure out what people's talents are. You figure out how to make them into a team. You figure out what your goals are. You make it as efficient as you possibly can so that you can evaluate as a massive amount of information in an efficient manner and get a lot done. I mean, I had at that time I prosecuted the largest healthcare civil settlement the state had ever had. We had the highest statistics for prosecution of cases. I mean, I prosecuted a lady for stealing a sweater. Even I was out knocking on doors the other day, and I ran into one of the employees for the Department of Health and Human Services, who was one of my clients at the time, and that was the story that she remembered.
Really?
And it made me smile because, that was probably, God, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And she said, I still remember that sweater case. And I said, well, maybe you can remind me about the case. And she said, there was a nursing home resident whose daughter had just bought her a brand new LL Bean sweater. And the aide had, quote, borrowed it.
Oh, jeez.
And it was brand new.
Yeah.
And then
from LL Bean, that's not cheap either.
No, exactly.
Sweater.
Exactly. And then the family came and said, well, we just get literally like
Just
the
gave
night
this to
before
her.
had just given her this sweater. So anyway, we got the complaint, and my detective looked at me funny and said, "You really want me to investigate this?" And I said, "Oh yes." I said,
You
because,
bet I do. Yeah.
Because if they took that sweater, what else did they take? They have no respect for that woman whatsoever. That woman, you're in a nursing home, you have very few belongings. We take nothing from them. So he agreed. He went. We investigated. Of course, we got photos of the lady in the sweater, the brand new LL Bean sweater. We were able to recover the sweater. It was a misdemeanor theft.
Yep.
So we convicted her of stealing the sweater, misdemeanor theft, and it was exactly the crime that you prosecute.
Mm-hmm.
Because people need to clearly understand you don't do anything to the elderly. You
There
do
are
not
boundaries.
take you do
right,
not
yeah.
take anything from them. You don't swindle them out of their money by saying you're going to fix their roof.
And not doing it.
You
Yeah,
don't
no.
get a power of attorney and take money out of their bank
No.
account. You don't take their sweater.
No.
You do not.
It could be anything, like I said, from the bank account down to a sweater. It doesn't matter how big or small the item is. You don't do that.
You don't.
It's just wrong.
It's just wrong. And so she remembered that story. She reminded me of it. And, that was, I said I did the biggest case that they had ever done up to that point, and I did the smallest case, both for the right reasons.
Well, that just goes to show that you're the type of candidate that there's no issue too big nor small.
Correct.
And I think that that's important, especially in your local politics, right? You need somebody who's going to go the extra mile for all the citizens, not just the ones you know or the ones you're friends with, but even the ones that are going to come to you at the 11th hour, not ever meeting you before, or even maybe they didn't even vote for you. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference. That's really unique, Marci.
Yeah, and then so after I did the healthcare crimes unit, I was hired by Maine General, where I became their chief compliance officer. Then I became their general counsel, which means I'm the attorney for a $500 million company. So I do everything from their contracts to their real estate to their disputes.
Anything legal, you're on it.
I'm on it. Yeah, exactly. And I had to come in and reorganize that.
Yep.
I had to reorganize various departments as I took them over to take them from being, a decent performing group to high performing.
And there's a huge difference. Those type A type people, yourself included, know what I'm talking about, right? There's things running okay, and then there's running efficient. You know what I'm saying? There is a difference. Huge difference.
And the other thing that I pride myself on is that I can get a group of people or a person to be super high performing and feel good about themselves.
Right, and that's
like
it's not always, those two aren't always hand in hand.
Exactly.
Right? Sometimes you can be very efficient, but you can also hate yourself for it too. Well, or the person, they're not bringing out the best in you. They're motivating you and not the best.
Well, you mean we spend all of our time at work.
Yeah.
Right? We get very limited time outside of work. You should enjoy what you're doing. You should enjoy the people that you work with.
Most definitely.
Your boss should tell you you're doing a good job. Now, that's not to say they shouldn't also say,
hey, step it up.
Or with this project, not even step it up, but with this project, I watched you do it. You had some good things here, but on this one issue, I would probably do it this other way.
Right, yes.
Right? Why don't we try that and see how that works?
Yeah, being a little bit more constructive. Yeah.
Still holding them accountable, but giving them the ability to grow.
Yeah.
So
pull themselves up in a directly or indirectly. That's important too. So if you had the ability to change one city issue, just snap of the fingers, what do you think it would be and why?
Well, it would be poverty, but I don't have that. If I had a magic wand, I would work really hard on poverty. I mean, we have a very, very high poverty ratio of children.
Yes, we do.
We do, and I that on my heartstrings, it would be the hardest. Is just making sure that those children have a good quality of life and that they have every opportunity to grow up to be an electrician, a plumber, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever.
Yeah.
That they're not injured in childhood by poverty to such an extent that they can't succeed later. Right? Because, we have population decline in Maine. So even if it weren't for just my heart purposes for wanting to help them, but from just an analytical perspective, every one of those kids is a future worker in the state of Maine.
We need them to go on and do.
We need them to be successful.
Exactly.
Because we don't have more workers. We have a decreasing population.
Yep.
We can't afford to lose one of those kids. And so if I could fix anything, I'd fix poverty. I know that's beyond the scope of municipal government. That's like a genie power I'd have to have.
It's a genie power type question, so that's okay. But no, that speaks to the candidate, though. You know what I'm saying? It speaks to what you're focused on. Again, you said that your focus was on making Augusta a place that your kids would want to come back to, so it only makes sense that you'd want to focus on childhood poverty. I completely get that. And I was just, it hurt my heart, when I was working in the school to find out, some of the things the kids would tell me. You know what I'm saying? You hear from the kids like, oh, like I couldn't, do my homework assignment because insert problem at home here because of economic purposes or economic reasons or lack of opportunity or, wants to be able to go and play on the middle school soccer team but can't because mom has to work until such and such a time and can't get a ride. Like that type of stuff. It's just like to think about it reminds me of how fortunate I was. You know what I'm saying? If I wanted to go play soccer, I'd go and play soccer. If I want to go learn a new sport, and it just like, even just like on that very basic, just like ideals of just like things you get to do as a kid, an opportunity that's a big one.
And that's why in the municipal level, how we help kids, right, is through our recreation programs and our school programs and our parks and our summer programs.
Yep.
When you expose children to potential of what they could be or what they could do, they can latch on it. But if they've never seen it before, if they've never seen success,
how are they going to know?
How do they know?
Yeah.
And again, these are people that we want to grow up to be successful adults, to hold jobs, to work at all of our businesses, to have families, to buy houses here. Because it's the right thing to do. I mean, it just is, I guess that's why I ran for mayor and city council. It was the right thing to do.
Right.
For other people.
Exactly. Not just for your own family unit, but you're like, by, making my own family unit want to come back, other families are, and improving things for other families as well as your own. And that's awesome. That's definitely a selfless position to put yourself in, which I'm sure not everybody can say. So, that's definitely unique there, Marci. And so if folks want to be able to keep track of you or find you on the campaign trail, where can they find you? What are the best ways to keep track of you?
Right on the campaign trail, it's Marci for Mayor, www.marciformayor.com. On Facebook, there's Marci for Mayor Facebook page. You can friend me. There's Marci Alexander.
You're on Instagram too, right?
I am on Instagram too. Although I admit I learned all this social media stuff while I've been campaigning.
Hey, always learning.
All you need is a friend under the age of 25. And I'm fortunate that my daughter has a great group of friends who've been giving me education on how to best present issues to the public so that it would be interesting to them.
Right, engaging. Yeah,
and engaging. Definitely. So I could say my issue that normally a 25-year-old wouldn't care about, like housing, for example. What's the best way to engage the public on that to get their perspective on it with social media? And so that's been interesting. I've learned a lot.
I'm sure. And like I said, it's always a learning experience. So you can find Marci at her before-mentioned websites, and we'll have a link to all the pages and everything like that on the description below. So, Marci, just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for coming on and sharing your views or what you'd like to do as mayor of the City of Augusta. So, best of luck on the rest of the campaign, and hopefully you'll get the office there in November.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. This is my first podcast. Again, but for running for mayor, I never would have had this opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's been fun. It's a nice conversation back and forth, and I just want to say you do a great job with this.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Marci. I definitely appreciate that. And appreciate all of you listening in, hearing Marci and I this week. I'll be back in another 2 weeks with episode 13 of the podcast. In the meantime, get caught up on all the previous episodes on all of your favorite listening platforms. And with that being said, make sure you're following us on Instagram at DuView207 and the DuView Podcast everywhere else. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you in another couple weeks.